right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Matt. Appreciate it. So here with Matt Smith with Champion PEO. Been together for a while now, and just want to say thanks for taking some time and sharing your experience about just our partnership, and kind of want to start going back to the early days in the beginning of all this. I mean, I remember coming to your guys' office, meeting you for the first time, and sitting down and talking about, your guys' business, understanding truly what you guys do. Obviously seeing if there was a potential fit, and obviously there was, but I kind of want to, if you can remember, Matt, like go back to, why you guys even picked up the phone, or like ultimately, like what made you reach out initially? Where were you guys at as a company? What were maybe some of the struggles, or maybe not necessarily struggles, like inconveniences or things that you guys were planning ahead going, we want to put a different partner in place here. So if you don't mind, let's kind of start there, and we'll kind of go from there.
Absolutely. And thanks for having me, Matt. Always glad to be here and to do some reciprocation, sharing our stories. Yeah. And, definitely love the relationship we have, and, peeling off that veil and going back, peeling the onion and going back to where we started.
It's 20, what was it? 20?
We started hiring in 2016. We went live in 2017, late 2017 with our first client.
We talked though, what was it, 2019? Was it?
Yeah. That seems about right. About 2 years in. When we first were hiring employees, so employee number one, when I was in charge of hiring employees, I knew we had to scramble, and we got to get employees that had an incredible amount of talents almost across the board. And I wanted to make sure that one of the employees that we were hiring as a director also had some IT experience, because we had no experience with IT. We just had a couple of workstations that worked, very old Dell computers. And I knew that as we start populating our office and start really using these machines, we're going to just run into issues, everything from minor troubleshooting issues to major overhaul issues that we're going to need some expertise on. So that was our first IT partner, was just an internal employee, pulling to the side whenever we have an issue. As we continue to grow throughout that year, we sought out a mom and pop standalone remote IT service that is local in Michigan. It's exactly what it was. It was just a husband and wife, and they were able to cater to our needs in the very beginning. But with every growing business, we get too big for our britches, and we needed to get something a little bit more robust, something that can do the same thing that we do for small businesses, which is give them the freedom to grow. Take something that bogs down and shifts their focus from their priorities to something that is a non-revenue producing activity, which is fiddling the computers and making sure that everything incoming and outgoing is secure. Troubleshooting issues, my second monitor isn't working, my mouse isn't working, things like that take your focus away from what you really need to be doing. And I knew I wanted to source out a company that is local in Michigan. Most of our vendors, there's some that we have to go outside the state of Michigan, but I would say a good 80% of our vendors and trusted partners are all within Michigan. So we were really glad to find a company like Brit. And I do remember looking you guys up. The first thing you do is, are they live on social media? Do they have a website? Let's go to their Google reviews. And then anywhere else where you can find some feedback from either current or past clients is always helpful. I do remember that day when you came into our office, and we spoke very briefly just about what we do and how we do it, and then switched back to you on how you could inject value into areas that, we didn't even think value needed to be injected into. And that was with our computers, because we're thinking now, we're not thinking ahead. And it's kind of hypocritical, Matt, because in the world of HR, we're all about proactiveness. We always want to be the devil's advocate for our clients. And at the same time, we always want to think a couple of steps ahead, the what if, the what could be. And we weren't doing that in our IT realm because that just wasn't our focus. So to get a partner like Grit that is able to take that off our plate and not just, help us refocus to our priorities, give us that peace of mind, that freedom to grow, but also enhance it. And I can't wait to start talking about some of the things that Grit has done to really enhance our IT structure, so much so that we brag about it to our clients. And it's actually now a legitimate, written down, documented sales point with any time we meet a prospect. So.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. If you can remember, like, just kind of going back a little bit to that point, though, obviously we had some back and forth, and obviously we both felt that there was as an opportunity there. But for you guys, what was it that was like, this is the company I want to go with? Can you remember maybe some initial thoughts of like what ultimately was the key pieces there for you? And, I know you work closely with your dad over there too, but, it was definitely something there that was like, I think this is going to work. I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. My father's not the most tech savvy person. He really had no interest in this meeting at all. I don't even think he showed up. He might have just, cracked open the door and said hi. That's usually his MO. But, he's like, look, just choose whoever you think is the best. And I would say my methodology, to, ring back on what I just reiterated about, making sure that they have a presence online, that they're a real company, that they do have clients, they do have feedback, they're out there, But I guess my second tier is just meeting that first introductory meeting, that first impression, and not to, toot your own horn, or toot your horn, I should say. But I mean, you had a great personality. You explained what Grit does very well with clarity, and you made it very easy for us to understand, because in a certain degree, this meeting was it was a distraction. It was taking time away from what we could have been doing. We could have been outside selling. We could have been focusing on our clients' needs and wants, the endless amount of tickets that we get weekly and daily. So for you to turn that meeting to something that actually interested us and got us excited was probably the biggest turning point. So when I explain HR and payroll to our clients, I have to use it in a way where it's going to excite them, because really it's just a nuisance. It's something that you just have to do as an employer. You got to pay your employees. You got to pay them compliantly. You got to pay your taxes. You got to give the money to the IRS. They're going to get it one way or another. And you got to make sure that you have certain foundational pillars in place, so you have some structure within your business. And it takes years and a good personality to convey that to someone who really is just already annoyed having this meeting, but they have to have it. Right. So for you to come in and really open our eyes and get us excited about the possibilities of having an enhanced IT structure, and how we could reciprocate that, and it can kind of bleed into some of our benefits that we, some of our fringe benefits that we offer to our clients. It's a win-win. And I think you explained that the best that we heard from the vendors that we did reach out to. I remember specifically after the meeting was over, me and my colleague looked at each other and we were like, yeah, that's it. And I believe we signed pretty quickly after that meeting, if I don't recall.
I'll have to double check, but I do remember we were kind of back and forth, and then it was like, you guys were like, yep, let's do it. And let's start the process on board. Do you remember the transition period, like as far as onboarding? I obviously it was, obviously you're still obviously here, but there was obviously some possibly concerns and things like that from a previous vendor, making that jump, do you remember that process at all?
Yeah, very well. The previous vendor was overwhelmed. It was husband and wife. They had too many clients, and we were kind of getting put on the back burner for whatever reason. We were just not getting the immediate prompt service that we were used to. And with IT, it's not so much a domino effect. I mean, it definitely can be. But when the lights go out, they go out. there's no recourse until you can turn them back on. So it got really scary. And that's when we started panicking. And that was another reason why we wanted to get into a more professional relationship with a company that has proven service to multiple clients, obviously is local in Michigan. Some of the concerns that we had with our previous IT was, well, one, being put on the back burner, not getting our questions or tickets answered in a timely fashion. I'm talking days, I'm talking weeks go by to the point where, we're calling multiple times, leaving voicemails, and really wondering, what are we really paying for? Because of the delay in service that we were getting up until the point that we transitioned to grit, there was a lot of holes in the cheese. And I believe during that implementation process, we were throwing as much over the fence to you guys as possible with just things that didn't get done that we were planning to get done with our previous IT partner. So the way you guys handled that implementation process, was stellar. I mean, it was extremely sublime. And I know a traditional implementation process, because I do them all the time with clients, you have a structured timeline. You have expectations given to the client so they are on the same page and they know what to expect going forward. But when you have that implementation process that you still have to do, as well as having a client that's already got immediate, almost emergency issues that need to be attended to right then and there, you guys hit it out of the park. And I think that's really what solidified our relationship and foreshadowed our relationship going forward, that not only can these guys, implement a client, and remember, it wasn't just one client. We have two businesses. Right. So we were smaller, obviously, back then. We're larger now, but during that implementation process, it wasn't just Champion PEO. It was my father's law firm. So we share two suites on the same floor in downtown Mount Clemens. Obviously, you've been there. A lot more people now. We're almost getting a little bit too big for our britches, to be honest with you. And we're going to have to start looking at real estate in the future. And that's going to be a fantastic conversation. It's going to be a great conversation. I can't wait to have with you guys at a certain point in time in the future. But we really needed someone that could obviously attend to the emergencies that we were currently navigating without having an IT partner, as well as migrating to this new IT partner. And that implementation process was sublime. And I remember it clearly. And it really did, foreshadow a really good, strong, and healthy relationship going forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad to hear that, because that's always always an area of possible just things going wrong, where without proper, upfront discovery, documentation, understanding how things are, intertwined and connected, and just office dynamics and all of that, you can really impact a client negatively if you do not have that set process in place, and I know you guys are, obviously in the HR side of things. So when you go with your own onboarding, I know you guys have like you were already stating, you have your own process, that you really work to make that as seamless as possible. And it's always a scary time, not necessarily for us, but like for the client, because it's such a big part of their business, and they're saying, okay, I got to trust you to literally lift everything and put everything, into your systems and into your hands. I really hope we didn't make a bad choice here. So I get that. There's definitely some sleepless nights for people, but we do a pretty good job of that. Let's kind of go into kind of just the day-to-day with you guys. We've been working with you guys since 2019. It's 2025 at the date of this recording. What's the process like? What are some daily aspects? How are you seeing, not necessarily grit, but maybe just like your technology supporting your team? Give me some insight to where, this is ultimately in support of you and your business.
Yeah, I mean, just starting from, the bottom up, minor issues are being solved with either just a quick 5 to 10 minute phone call and a screen share, or within the same day if it's not a priority. And that's what I tell all of my employees, both Champion PEO and MGS Law. If you have something that's a priority, give them a call. Just call them. If you have something that can wait, send them a ticket. That's the way they work. And, that way they can kind of take the pulse based off of how we reach out with whether it be a minor issue or something that needs to be attended to quickly. There's been plenty of times where I haven't been able to be there to help specifically. So I've got a very foundational, very minor IT background, and that's mainly because at certain points with our previous IT partner, I was the person that everyone was coming to reset my computer, to go reset the internet, to, check out if the cables have been burnt out. Do I need a second monitor, and do I want a second monitor, and how do I even install that? The freedom that Grit has been able to give me has been incredible. I love wearing multiple hats. Matt, I know you can definitely relate. Most people in our types of fields, B2B professional services, tend to wear multiple hats, and I'm comfortable with it. I love time management. I love working on multiple projects at once. But the amount of time that Grit has saved me specifically in letting our employees, empower our employees to seek out their own solutions through our IT partner has just been incredible. Not only has it been empowering, but it's been educating as well. I have employees now that have run into repeated issues that they have solved themselves, whether it be, switching out an HDMI cord because, it just stopped working, or figuring out how to structure their 3 monitors to where it bleeds how they want it to bleed, from left to right or right to left, bottom up, whatever they prefer. And I've been wondering, well, how do they know how to do these things? Well, it's because the professionals, the reps, the account managers at Grit don't just fix the problem. They empower the employees and they educate them as they do it. And I think that's incredible. That's something that we try to do as well for our clients. Whenever there is an HR question, a compliance question, a question in regards to the labyrinth of local, state, and federal laws and rules and regulations that these small business owners they're forced to be professionals in when they're not. Not only do we solve these problems like Grit does, but we empower and we teach and we educate. And as a result, we get less tickets. And I'm sure Grit has gotten less of the same frequent tickets that we used to give in the early days in our relationship, because your reps don't just solve the problem. They teach, they educate, they empower. And I think that's a huge benefit, regardless of whatever vendor we're talking about, whatever industry. If you can do that, solve the problem for your client as well as empower and teach, and don't be scared to empower and teach, I think that's huge. That speaks volumes.
Well, I really appreciate that. And that's ultimately, that comes from the head of our leadership down. That's not just something we just try to implement it. It's a cultural wide, type of thing, and I can tell you there's internal, chats and stuff here when, guys are working on a solution, or there's a power outage in the area, or, the unexpected technology just decides to blow up for whatever reason, you can see that they're trying to learn from it. They recap on things, and they definitely want to see where, obviously you can improve, but if there's an area to educate internally as well, like that's just a cultural thing that we do. And it's, that definitely reflects in our relationship with our clients. So if there's, we definitely want to empower people. We just don't want to be the ones to call, fix the thing, and then hang up the phone. If we can benefit you guys more than just fixing the problem, then we've definitely done our job at that point. So I'm so happy to hear that, when you communicated that, but just that you guys experience that on a continual basis. Kind of speaking to just kind of the improvements that you guys have seen, maybe some specific projects that we've done for you, or there's just specific things that we do on a recurring basis that you see as beneficial. Could you maybe speak into that a little bit?
Well, to kind of piggyback on what I just, reiterated, on how, I know you guys have seen the frequency of similar issues dull down because of that empowerment and education, is the monthly report that we get. That is a super easy to understand dashboard of the issues that our employees experienced that month, whether they were minor or major, whether there was any major projects or projects that are currently ongoing. It's a great way to just quickly, without having to, call the employer or call your point of contact and take their attention away from whatever they're doing, send them a sound, easy to understand email that contains a visual dashboard that gives them an immediate understanding of how that month went. So first and foremost, that is something that I always look forward to. Annually, that's probably my favorite report that I get is your annual report on certain process and procedures that either we have talked about in the past that we agreed that we needed to implement from an IT perspective, as well as allocating all of the SOPs, processes, and procedures that we have created because of your recommendations. And that's something that I actually spend time on. It's impacted not just our hierarchy, but our clients as well. Policies and procedures that we've made based off Grit's recommendation when it comes to cybersecurity, IT, identifying phishing and spam emails, making sure just foundational security measures, making sure you change your password, what is it, every 90 days, making sure that you don't. A clean desk policy is probably one of the first things I implemented that Grit suggested, clean desk policy. And I have some employees didn't even have to tell that to, but some, tend to keep things just sprawled on their desk. They call it their organized mess. They're some of my best employees. And I know they weren't too favorable of that policy in the interim, but as we've helped each other and leaned on each other to remind each other and to just ourselves as professionals and adults to be accountable of our proprietary and confidential information has been so huge. And it's really impacted not just each individual employee, but like you said, our culture as a whole, who we are as a unified group of, like we call them, champions. Because how we operate at our desk is a direct correlation to how our service is to our clients. It's like, looking into someone's car. It's squeaky clean. It looks like it just got detailed. Normally, their house is going to look the same. And that's just an analogy I want to use that says, if you take care of your surroundings, your desk, your work environment, typically that is a great sign of how you articulate our services, the attention to detail, your promptness, your professionalism to our clients. And when you're constantly trying to earn their business for the next day, for the next week, for the next month, for the next year, that's so important. So I would say between the monthly reports that I get all the way to the annual reports are such a great insight. And the first annual report that we got from Grit was in person. And I think that is so important because I have vendors, and I'm sure you guys have too, that implement these random newsletters. Though they may be valuable, they just start them. And there's really no buildup. There's no notice. There's no sense of importance that, hey, we're starting this newsletter, this new annual report, this breakdown. And before we send you your first one, let's meet in person so we can break it down for you and answer any questions that you may have so you understand the importance and you understand the value that this is going to bring if you just give it a couple of minutes and you digest it when it comes in, whether it be weekly, monthly, or annually. So I'll never forget that first meeting. It was an eye-opener. It was an eye-opener. It really taught me to humble myself and realize that even though I feel like I'm doing everything in my power to grow Champion PEO ethically, as well as service our clients in a professional manner, there is still areas that I'm ignoring, whether it be intentionally or not. IT was one of them. And The policies that I immediately implemented, I could see within 24 hours a significant difference in the security measures that we were taking, to enhance the security measures that we already had in place, both internally and externally. So that would be my two huge features that I really stick out, when you mentioned that in regards to grit.
Yeah. Coming together, sitting down, doing an annual assessment, with you guys. And we do that differently with each client, depending on the size and how many employees they have and everything. Sometimes it's more frequent because it has to be, most of the times it's, maybe, some check-ins throughout the year, and then a big one to really kind of go through and proactively plan through all of that. But personally, there's just no other way to do that. You've got to be able to come to a client and say, hey, even if things are good, they're not going to be in maybe potentially, 12 months to, 36 months down the line, just because IT is it's going to wear out over time, right? There are things that we need to replace and just be proactive with. So the fact that you enjoy that, it's been eye-opening for you. Definitely a huge win, for our team on that. And I'm glad you've seen some of the impact on that. Obviously you value IT, we've talked about it as, as an investment. What have you seen, maybe, or it's been talked with, as far as the employee base, what ultimately does that do for you guys as far as, you talked about some of the process and procedures and things that you've implemented, across the board and done for, your clients. What other areas do you think there are of impact? Because, you're talking to like how this is improving your overall relationship with your client base and prepping them. Ultimately we're just talking about computers and circuit boards, right? Like, it's not like this, but it's obviously more than that. Could you maybe dive into just a little bit deeper into some of that? Because I think there's a good message here. And I know we've talked about it a couple of times before.
Absolutely. So, we pride ourselves on letting clients know that we are not your typical cookie cutter PEO. I'll scream it at the top of the mountains. We are family owned and operated. We are a boutique. We perform our services almost as a white glove concierge type approach. And I'll be the first to say that, we rely on our partners a lot in order to provide such a high touch service to our clients. And if you're going to stick your neck out and offer that, you have to make sure that you can back it up. And when it comes to security, it's paramount. You can just look at my father's law firm. In and out, constant amounts of sensitive, proprietary, confidential information. The same thing with Champion PEO. We deal with, tons of social security numbers, ID cards, sensitive emails, employees coming to us and telling us very confidential information that they experienced at work. Maybe it was a sexual harassment issue. Maybe it was an issue that they have with their only supervisor and they have no one else to go to. Whether it be a phone call, a text message to our direct dials, or an email. All of that I know is being taken care of and monitored, both internally and externally through our IT partner. And to really answer your question, one of the things that I like to tell our clients is that we have trusted partners to make sure that that sector of our business is secure, whether it be our employee benefit and workers' compensation insurance partner that monitors our workers' compensation plan, that is there at a moment's notice to answer any type of issue, attend to an audit from a client, or to answer any question that an employer may have or potential prospect may have. It goes the same with our cybersecurity that is only getting more and more prevalent as we continue with the advance in technology with AI. It doesn't matter what size of company you are, you can get red flagged. You've got a spotlight on you. If it can happen to the big guys, it can happen to the small guys. So one of the first things, and one of the many things that I like to tell clients is our trusted partners, our resources are your resources. And how are they going to benefit you is what I get right into. And when I talk about cybersecurity, making sure that their information is secure and safe, when they send things to us and we send things to them, I get excited because I know that that value's there, regardless of what employer I'm talking to, regardless of what industry that employer is operating in. I know that they can take tremendous appreciation that Champion PEO went out of their way to partner with a incredibly local and professional firm like Grit Technologies to ensure that our IT is secure and everything that we communicate with the client is secure. So to kind of answer your question, just very quickly, we've, like I said before in the beginning of the call, we've structured our partners into our sales approach with new business, cold business, warm business. We want to make sure that when we approach a prospect, that we're not afraid to let them know that, no, we don't just take care of our IT internally. We have trusted partners for a reason. And that is because we want to make sure that it is insulated, it is secure, and you have that added peace of mind along with your payroll and HR and compliance being done. But you have that added peace of mind to know that all the information that's coming in and out of Champion PEO is secure. The backups are in place because record keeping is such a huge part of what we do for our current and former clients. I mean, just by law, records have to be kept for a certain amount of years. So the fact that we have that reassurance from Grit to ensure that those records will be there until we don't want them to be there is such a breath of fresh air. And of course, we could talk about all the different levels of IT that Grit impacts, that synergistically impacts our clients, but that's just one of many.
Yeah, no, that's great. And thank you for that. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a top to bottom, approach across there. And it's, we've got a good process and procedures in place, but we really do follow those proven frameworks as well. That, it's one thing to talk about. It's one thing to actually to do that. And that comes from, operations and our leadership and management. So I'm happy to see that you guys are doing that. And then you're, communicating and working, with your client base on all of that. And you can confidently say that your stuff is safe, protected, and that their information is ultimately safe and protected as well. Kind of speaking on security.
Real quick, yeah. I wanted to just add a little bit to that too. Talk about, because we recently switched up our sales approach and how we differentiate ourselves from all the other competitors out there. The big box payroll companies, ADP, Paychex, Paycor, to the more local competitors that are similar to our size, roughly. And we get this question all the time, at least from prospects who really want to know why we are unique. And that's the actual question: is what makes you unique? Typically, you ask that to any salesperson of any payroll company, or really any company that does B2B professional services. They're going to talk about their services, because why not? That's what they're there for. We want to talk about our services. We want to add value. I don't talk about our services. I talk about three things: people, resources, and technology. And Grit is intertwined in all three of those. With people, we talk about our internal people that we hire. I remember mentioning this to you on our podcast we shot, just a little bit a while ago, that we hire attitude, we train skill, and Grit mirrors that. So our people internally literally genuinely care about our clients, their businesses, and their employees. And resources is the second that I like to go into. And our resources are our trusted partners. Our trusted partners are your resources. Our resources are your added values. And I love to go off and just mention every single resource that we have without even mentioning Champion PEO. MJS Law, our internal law firm that offers pro bono legal counsel for our employees, and a lot of other different things. We have our insurance partner, who's also family owned and operated right here local in Michigan. And then, of course, we talk about Grit, how they're also locally a local privately owned business. And the steps that we've taken to partner with them to ensure that our IT, our technology internally, both externally, is secure. And lastly is technology. So we got people, resources, and technology. And the technology part has been a huge added value from Grit. And the fact that we're able to enhance our technology in a way that mirrors how we want to operate, not just what we have to get because, we're not being proactive. Having a firm that can actually recommend which way to go and the logic behind it because they know our business so well is such a relief. And it's such an added value with giving us a little bit more freedom to focus on our priorities while Grit helps guide our internal IT structure in the way our business is growing. So just wanted to add that because it's such now a pivotal part of how we approach prospects, making sure that they recognize that even though they're outsourcing some of their key administrative non-revenue producing tasks to Champion PEO, we do, and for a very important reason, outsource certain internal structures to ensure that our services that we reciprocate to our clients are top tier and mirror how we identify ourselves as a high touch boutique concierge, family owned and operated service partner to their business.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thanks for adding that in there. I do appreciate that. I mean, if you were to put this into maybe some dollars and cents or even, percentage or whatever, I mean, ultimately, what does this do for Champion? I mean, have you seen any direct impact in that side or no?
It's a hard question to answer because we've had to spend more than we thought we would have to, not on Grit's services, but our internal archaic technology. Our computers, when we first went online, were all Dell computers already about 5 to 6 years old. We still have a couple on the MJS law side that are 10 plus years old now. And there comes a point in time where you have to upgrade. There's no, you cannot give this computer CPR any longer. You gotta get rid of it. You gotta upgrade. And Grit has been fantastic in letting us know when that deadline is and giving us enough lead up time to get ready for that financial upgrade, which is awesome. I mean, I'm not going to say, that we can just willy-nilly spend $10,000 here, $20,000 there on new technology. Like any growing business, a family-owned, operated business with no external angel investors, we have to make sure that we're riding that fine line between, growth and, I guess, shrinkage. I mean, we have to make sure that we ride that fine line as best as we can when it comes to internal upgrades and to ensure that the upgrades that we're making need to be made and that there's an actual investment part to it, to where the money that we're investing into our technology is going to work for us for the next 5 to 10 years, however long that may be. The real savings, I would say, would have to be in time. The amount of time that Grit has saved us from troubleshooting everything from minor issues to larger issues. And by what I mean by that is troubleshooting, obviously minor issues, cables break, monitors are faulty, software doesn't work, my screen's frozen, my cookies are full, my local drive is full. Why do I keep getting, phishing emails? And then larger issues that are so complex that we would then have to take a 15, 20, 30-minute meeting just to discuss it and wrap our head around it. Right. The time Grit has saved us it probably amounts to, I would say 5 to 10% on our bottom line. I would be hard pressed to say anything less than that. I would say anywhere from 5 to 10% Grit has saved us on our bottom line, just with the time that you've given us back through once, like I said before, empowering and educating to the point where our employees can, fix their minor issues willy-nilly and get right back to work. They don't have to put a ticket in or call Grit and screen share and get them to, fix that repeated problem because they've already educated our employee on how to do that. Taking off large projects off our shoulders so they can digest them, work on them, and then provide a solution. That's the real true synergistic relationship between two really good partners. Is I have an issue, can you solve it? I have an issue, can you solve it? And what that relationship looks like, the efficiency that increases over time, and the strength, transparency, honesty, and the integrity that's just intertwined in that relationship. I think that really defines a good B2B professional services relationship of just solving problems, the reduction in the amount of problems that need to be solved, and the amount of time that you save each person because of that ongoing efficiency, that building of that strength and that underlying relationship. So I would say, bar none, without having to go to my calculator, I would say 5 to 10%. Grit has probably said this in our bottom line, just by the time you have given us back that we used to spend twiddling our thumbs and freaking out about our technology going down, because that is our life and blood. Yeah. Our computers are everything.
No, thanks for sharing that. As somebody who might be kind of watching this, listening to you speak, me speak, considering maybe going into not necessarily a relationship with us, but let's just say to an MSP type of relationship, what would you say maybe are some things that you need to ultimately look for that's going to make the big impact and difference? What are maybe like some of the non-negotiables? Like, for you, because you guys are obviously high performers, right? You're delivering to a high performance type of clientele. You need to be on top of your game. What are just some of those aspects if you were to hand that to somebody on a sheet of paper and say, this is above all else, this is ultimately what you need to look for, but take Grit's name out of the equation. Like just what would you say would that be?
You're gonna have to explain that question to me again.
I'm
trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah. So if you were to say, what are some things about take Grit out of the name, but like as a company, like doing what we do, what would you say are just some non-negotiables for them to partner? So somebody's looking at going out and partnering with an MSP. Okay. What are just these are the non-negotiable things. They got to be X, Y, Z. And these different things in your own words, in your own mind. For what you guys experience and what you've gone through. But take Grit out of the equation. Like what? Got it. What would you say are those things?
Accountability, I would say one. I think accountability is intertwined in every great characteristic that an individual, a professional, an adult, or a business should have. And it's unfortunately hard to come by, just like common sense. All of these, these two characteristics, if you got them, can really strengthen a relationship between two vendors, partners, two clients, or two coworkers. And I believe that with finding, if you're going to get in bed with a vendor, if you're going to find your first partner, every business, it takes a village, right? And just with growing a business, regardless of niche, you're going to need some help. And in order to find a great partner, you're going to have to find that humility. You're going to have to find that accountability. You're going to have to find that rawness and that transparency that they just don't tell you outright, but you feel, whether it be from going on their social media and seeing what they're posting, going on their website, seeing if it's user-friendly, see if they do have an about me. Do they highlight their employees? Do they talk a little bit about their history? Or do they just, are just there, keeping the light on, and then meeting them for the first time. First impressions, it's the old adage, first impressions are everything, and they really are, especially if what's at stake is a potential 5, 10, 20-year relationship. You have to ensure that first impression is both in good faith and also at a sense of relaxation. And by what I mean by that is you have to get a feel for the person in order to get a feel for the business. And any business that has someone that comes out and sees a client they should know that that person is really going to be the face of that business for that 20, 15, 30, 45-minute meeting. And that person should know that too as well. So anytime Champion PEO, tries to find a new vendor or needs to find a new vendor, or if we're going to a prospect, an actual business and meeting for the first time, I try to find out as much as I can about that business. I try to just rip it open and get to the nitty gritty on why that employer went into business in the first place. Because I doubt it that he or she went in to be an entrepreneur, to sit in the back office and write checks and worry about the IRS and worry about local and state government laws. They stuck their neck out. They took the risk. They decided to be an employer and be their own boss to either fix a problem, provide a solution, or provide a product. It's either a product or a service or both, which is what Grit and Champion PEO offers. We're both products and services. So I try to find out as much as I can about that business and have a very raw and transparent meeting with them and really find out, can I feel the accountability? Can I feel the transparency? And can I see this, can I see this as a very honest first meeting, I guess you would say. So I would take accountability. I would take common sense as, your first and foremost characteristics that you try to look out for. Because when you have those two, you typically can have, everything else right behind that, which is really high touch service, honesty, integrity, transparency. That's what I would look for. And that's typically what I look for. I try to read people as best as I can. Being in HR, you kind of have to, and being, a salesperson, whether you're selling a product or service, you really have to have that keen eye, whether you're that person making a executive decision to get in bed with a new vendor, or seeing if this client is qualified to come on board. So it could go either way.
I noticed in all of what you said, which was all great, there was nothing to do with about technology.
Yeah.
I think, especially in our world, there a lot of, because that's what we're in daily. They're talking about the latest tech or the latest security offering or whatever. Everything you specifically talked about was obviously more than that. It was really about hard about the individual, people that work there, their processes, their things ultimately are going to help perform you better, which really is not necessarily about the tech. It's more about the integrity and everything else behind it, which is I 100% agree with you. And that's ultimately what we're looking at our vendors. And even when it comes to something as simple as like private, clouds for businesses and things like that, it's like, yeah, they have our solution, but like, how long have they been in business? Do they have people that, are they fast to troubleshoot those things? Like whatever, like we ultimately really hinge on that. So that's awesome.
And just to piggyback, if I could, Matt, just to piggyback on that, now that I fully understood the question that you were asking, it's an easy question to answer if you're not honest. Just look for price. Just look for local ability. Look for, everything that you need as far as services. Look for how many years they've been in business. Look to see if they're bonded and insured. I wanted to really answer that question as honestly as I could from my own POV on the characteristics that I look for. I obviously already know when I was going to sit down with Grit, you guys knew about technology, and I bet you're freaking excited to talk about it. But I want to understand what is going to be the foreshadowing characteristics that are going to, let us see what our possible relationship is going to be, because we've already gone through a horrible one. We were, when we had that first IT partner, it was great when we were relatively small and, our gears were turning, but we got too big for them very quick. And I think they got too big for themselves very quick. And we felt the heat on that other end. Yeah. So coming into Grit, I knew you guys could, for the most part, fill our needs, but it was, can I get a feel for the person behind the business? Can I get a feel for the person behind that Grit logo? Can I get a feel for the employee culture? What kind of culture do they have? And does it exude through the person that I'm talking to? And those are the characteristics. If I was speaking to someone and if someone was watching this and wanting to know, what do I look out for when I want to get into a really good partnership with another vendor or a partner, or maybe an exclusive partnership? Obviously, you have to make sure the bottom lines are okay. You got to make sure that what you're going after is what you need. But you have to also understand that this is going to be a long-term relationship. And if you can't find that common sense, that accountability, professionalism, the integrity, the honesty and transparency, it's going to be a honeymoon phase, and then it's going to fall right off, just like with our first vendor.
Yep. No, the honeymoon comment is definitely something we typically see, or a second honeymoon where things go bad and then all of a sudden they get all the attention again, but then they
renew their vows.
Yeah, right. And then that just happens again. So that's key. That's key. I think I kind of want to start wrapping it up. Just in our conversation here, and seriously, thank you for everything. All your comments on all of it is fantastic. Would you have any other final kind of thoughts, or anything in closing you might need to add, or
something specific actually that we're working through right now, thanks to our amazing account manager Denise. She let us know with ample amount of time that October 14th this year, Windows 10 is going bye-bye.
Yep.
So any computer that is too old to run Windows 11, you got to upgrade. And she sourced out and found out that we had 5 computers that needed to be upgraded. Luckily, all on MJS Law's side. I'm champion.
All your dad's side.
On my dad's side. It's law firms are just archaic in general. Everything's pen and paper, boxes and boxes of files. So of course the computers are going to have some cobwebs on them. But they've got 5 computers that we got to upgrade. I communicated exactly what Denise communicated to me, to MJS Law, to my father, to her account executive. And we just bought all the computers yesterday. They're going to be here in about a week. And once they're here, me and Denise continued our discussion of what's going to happen. And obviously, we can't just have 5 computers, 5 employees down. We're going to have to piecemeal and really get figure out the logistics of how we're going to transfer the data from the old to the new, and then obviously program the new for them to use going forward. So anyone watching this that hasn't heard about that, make sure October 14th is the deadline. And thanks to Denise, thanks to Grit, and thanks to your foresight and proactiveness, we won't run into any issues, and there won't be a hiccup. So that's the one thing I wanted to mention. It's something that we're currently working through right now. It'll probably be solved, done, filed, probably within a month. So definitely before the deadline. So very happy with that outcome and looking forward to wrapping that up.
Absolutely. No, it's definitely what we're about. I'll definitely pass that along to her too. So she'll be happy to hear that. Matt, again, I just wanted to say thank you for just obviously for today, for taking some time sitting down and really giving your full, raw, transparent, just experience with us. It's great seeing you again, and I'm really looking forward to just what the future holds. Seeing you guys from where you are now, as far as the size of with employees, what you guys are doing is always exciting. You're looking at real estate soon here. Obviously we'll be part of that conversation down the line. So really just wish you guys all the best, and I think we'll wrap it with that. Sound good?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Feelings mutual. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to our next conversation.
Sounds good.